Hey, Mortgage Coach community, Dave Savage. Today I am interviewing Keith Collins. What's up, Keith?
What's going on, Dave?
What's going on with you, man?
Oh,
I
I'm
hear
good.
you're killing it. So I think this is the second or third time. I think it's the first time we've done this kind of interview. But
Yep.
you've been on a mastermind call
I
about
was
a
on a
month ago.
Friday call. Yeah, I was on a Friday call before. This is the second time we've done this, so this is kind of cool.
Well, I'm going to put a link down below. So anybody that likes what Keith has to say and you want to hear more, there'll be a link. You're watching this on YouTube. Link down below. So Keith, you're pretty new as a active leader in the mortgage coach community. If you could just tell folks a little bit about your mortgage practice, where you're at, and then we'll drive that into the mortgage coach conversation, and we're going to share a few ideas.
Sounds great. Yeah, I am new. It's actually something that I've resisted for a while, not because I didn't think it was a great technology, but it just in where my business was before, I didn't feel like it was an absolute necessity, and it was something that we were going to have to change and implement. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm always about elevating the business, but things have changed this year where I believe the technology is critical. So I'm in the Sacramento market. I've been doing home loans here for about 15 years. I'm usually in the $50 million range in personal production. And then January of this year, I transitioned to a new company, and I hold a role what they call as a producing market leader. So I'm tasked with growing the region, still doing my origination business, but recruiting loan officers. And so for me, it's been a little bit different as I'm trying to find ways to coach them up. But we've had some great success this year. We know bringing on about 25, 26 LOs. If we look at what they did in 18, that's 850 families to 275 to $300 million in volume for 2019. So it's been pretty cool. So on that side of it, it's probably been one of my best years I've ever had. On the other side, it's also been probably one of my most challenging, with just the change in the market. I've never been shopped more in my career. I've never talked to clients more rate sensitive, and I've not seen LOs experience the same thing at the level that we are. And that's what kind of like forced me into finally saying, cool, I give up. I'm going to jump into mortgage coach, and it's been awesome. So here we are.
Yeah, well, for everybody who's listening to this, I mean, that is an epic story. I mean, the kind of volume that you're doing as a producer to, become a producing, regional leader, do the type of growth and success you're doing. I mean, that's phenomenal. So congrats.
Thank you.
And it's great to have you using Mortgage Coach. So what I am trying to do with this interview and other interviews like this is I'm calling this a mortgage strategies interview. And so, by the way, I have a whole playlist. You're like number 14 of these. And I find that, mortgage coaches technology, and they need to learn the new technology, data input, click here, do that. But then it's also, it's like playing chess. It's like they need to ask questions, listen, recommend different mortgage strategies. And so I'm trying to teach loan officers to be better at creative financing. And so it's not just the data input of mortgage coach, it's the strategic thinking to deliver mortgage strategies, not rates. So that's, by the way, that's the goal of this interview in the playlist. By the way, link to the playlist down below. So why don't you start by, why did you start using Mortgage Coach? And then let's get into a couple specific strategies that will help loan officers, upgrade themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so I think our industry's done like a really poor job of educating the consumer that applying for a home loan is the same as actually getting one. And so it's kind of commoditized our industry. And we don't like I look at like the grocery industry, right? They've got the GMO sticker and they've got the organic sticker. So you walk into a grocery store and you see a bag of carrots, it's got a organic sticker on there. Like that is perceived value at point of sale for the consumer in the grocery store. They understand that, hey, based on that organic sticker, I'm probably going to eat healthier. And they probably understand in their mind that it might be a little bit more expensive, but I understand the value at point of sale. And I'm going to go ahead and buy organic or non-organic and live with the decision or consequence from it, right? That's at point of sale. The challenge that I see, and the big reason why I switched to Mortgage Coach in my business is as a self-sourced originator, we're selling value that the client can't see at point of sale. Right, we're making statements like you love, like my advice matters, or we say things that people don't, or we try to go down the path of like letting people know that, you know, things might go wrong if you go with this other lender, but they're not seeing that value at point of sale. And so I think what the industry has done is they commoditized us to a point where value at point of sale is an interest rate. And that becomes the challenge for a self-source mortgage originator that is an experienced originator, is how do we communicate value to the customer at point of sale so that they choose us. And I think that's where we've inserted Mortgage Coach into our process to give us the tools to be able to have that value conversation like immediately. And people are getting it. So, and then it's, you know, it's a really cool technology as well. So that's kind of what I've gone through and why we're using it.
So by the way, I love the way you answered that question. I'd never heard it articulated like that. I always, you know, well, everybody has a different way. That's why I love doing these interviews. You interview top producers that are incredible at connecting with people and winning at the point of sale. And by the way, that's why you're so good, is you can articulate concepts really well. So if you're watching this, I want you to think about it. You know, like if you're just quoting rates with a fee worksheet and you're not delivering what I call personally branded advice and creating personally branded advice experience, you're just, you know, you're playing checkers, and to be successful really from here on out, you know, it's just going to get more and more obvious that if you aren't an advisor and you aren't building a personal brand, you are disruptible, you know, and you're going to get grinded and you're going to lose business. So before we get into a specific strategy, you know, has it worked? I mean, like, are we reducing rate shopping? Are we helping you win at the point of sale? You know, any stories or any just feedback from the market?
For sure. So this is my third time around actually signing up for your software.
Right.
It's full implementation. Every single client that comes across my desk gets a total cost analysis. And then we're creating video, doing the live presentations. So it is fully incorporated into the business. So yeah, I mean, like, it's working. The challenge is like a client asks, and this is like nails on the chalkboard question that every originator hears is the client asks, like, what's your rate? And we all cringe at that conversation. And where I think Mortgage Coach really helps us bridge that gap is having, like I said, that value conversation. I think when people are asking that question, like, hey, what's your rate? There's probably 20 or 30% of the people that, like, truly that's all that they care about is interest rate. And, you know, lob off an estimate. You may win them, you may not win them. But for me, that's not really the customer that I'm truly shooting for. I think there's like another 70 to 80% of the clientele that ask that question, like, what's your rate? And it's because they're programmed to ask that question. They don't really know what else to ask. So they ask that because that is what our industry is perceived as our value, is that interest rate. But I really think they're asking things like, are you cool, right? Are you going to take care of me? Are you going to do what you say you're going to do? And so inserting Mortgage Coach into that allows us to answer the question for the other 80 to 70% of the clients that really are just trying to get to know you, but really don't know how to start the conversation. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think every question someone asks when it's new, whether they ask the question with this purpose or not, they're trying to get, can I trust you? And are you an authority? Like, are you someone that is an expert at what you do? And that is part of the science of Mortgage Coach, is that you get the trust through extreme transparency. Let's face it, I mean, a total cost analysis, it's more than a fee worksheet. There is more transparency there. You know, it is education, but then at the same time, just because it's, you know, graphs and charts, it's cost over different periods of time, it's like, oh, wow, you're an expert. You're more nerdy about mortgages than anyone else I've talked to. You know, so it's like, and by the way, when people trust you and they see you as an authority, they're less likely to shop. And if they do shop, they're a whole lot more likely to do business with you. So let's get into it. You know, let's do 2 stories and strategies. So you go which order you want, show your desktop. If you could frame it around the sales situation, because I'm trying to get loan officers to go, okay, I had this type of family. I asked these types of questions and I delivered this type of personally brand. By the way, scroll down real quick. I just want to see the top where your branding is in it. No, to the top. So by the way, I want everybody to make note at Mortgage Coach, we're super intentional, company brand, personal brand. I'm seeing more and more loan officers. Like if you watch the Josh Metal mortgage strategy.
Family. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the way, click down below because that interview is epic. He's got his family. Now, I'm not here to say everybody should put their family. What I'm here to say is it's your brand. So be intentional about that. So go ahead, story and strategy.
Okay, cool. So this one was really cool. I've always, I took the CMP class. I've always got into tax benefits, long-term planning with clients. There was a point where probably 30% of my clientele were real estate investors. And so I've always had these conversations about long-term planning, retirement planning, tax strategies. And it's been always done on like a calculator, right? And so the client, this scenario I thought was perfect, and why I wanted to bring it up is, the client has a specific retirement strategy in mind and really asked me to show him and his family a few different options that would maybe fit into the retirement strategy. And out of this, two things occurred. One, like looking at this, I tried to look back and said, like, if I would have done this my old way and then doing this my new way, which is Mortgage Coach, what would the results have been? And if I would have looked at this independently of actually be able to run the analysis that Mortgage Coach can provide, I actually probably would have recommended the client stay, not refi. And I wouldn't have gotten the call from their financial advisor. So when I actually put this together and sent it over to the client and then walked them through it, they were stoked. They sent it to their financial advisor, met with them, and then the financial advisor actually called me, was really impressed with our presentation and wanted to have wants to schedule an appointment. So we have an appointment on the books. So this all happened like the last 2 weeks, which is kind of cool. So to frame what the client wanted to do here, this client's looking at retiring in the next 10 years. We did the purchase loan and we did a first and second. So we did a conforming high balance first to the max, and then we layered in that interest only TCF second.
Real quick, if you could just scroll up so we can see all the numbers.
Sorry.
And then by the way, click the more info in the summary button, just because people, I want you guys to see, that, hey, and by the way, we can even adjust the view. I'll show that in a minute.
Yep.
We can get into transactional details. We can get into different concepts. Anyways, I just wanted folks to see that you could peel back the onion and get more information.
Yeah.
But go ahead and explain this the way, you would explain it. Or, let's say you're teaching your team. Like, picture you're presenting to your 25 loan officers. Keep walking.
Got it. So basically the client wants to retire in 10 years, is very cash flow heavy right now, has a lot of cash flow, but in 10 years is looking at selling the house, downsizing, retiring, and the kids are going to be out of the school, out of college. So those bills will go away. So he's saying, like, I'm really uncomfortable with this $150,000 second interest only mortgage that I have, that I'm seeing interest rates go up on. And I would like to, utilize this additional cash flow that I have right now to potentially pay off the mortgage as quickly as possible so that I have the most equity at point of sale, which is in potentially 10 years, right? So what I put it together was really 3 different options, but I stacked it up against the current mortgage. And I love that you can really put in that information about where they started and where they're at right now. I put together so you'll see right here, the jumbo 15-year. I put together a jumbo 30-year. And then I put together a jumbo 7/1 arm. I want to get out of this because I want to show this here. You can see this, right, Dave? So what I did is the jumbo 15-year has the highest payment. So I put, to be fair, the 30-year, jumbo 30-year, and the jumbo 7/1 arm at the same monthly payment. Because if I'm trying to show him, hey, like, what loan is going to have the most equity, what loan is going to give you the most equity in 10 years, if I just show him a 15-year and then I show him a 30-year not accelerating the principal, I didn't feel like it was fair. So I put all the payments at the same, including his current mortgage. So I said, hey, like, what if you just don't refi and you stay, and the money that you would apply towards this new loan, you just apply towards the current, right? Because we want to look at everything. Does it make sense to refi or does it not? And then because it was 10 years out, what I love about this one here, where you have the kind of a couple different categories you could put in, right? Net worth in 10 years. I think there's 3 or 4 other things that you can put in. You can adjust, hey, is it 10 years? Is it 15 years? You can show total interest paid. This one here was total net worth because that's his primary goal. The jumbo 15-year doesn't have the most equity, but what the client felt was that this was the loan that provided them the most security towards that max equity position. Does that make sense? So he could stay and apply the additional principal payments towards his current loan and have, roughly $5,000 more in equity, but he's going to have that large second mortgage that's interest only for a significant period of time that is probably going to go up again in interest rate. Am I making sense? You follow me on that?
We're tracking you.
Yep. And then what the other thing was really cool, which there's just no way that I would have been able to project this, is on the ARM, you're able to put in the margins and the index into Mortgage Coach, and then you're able to project out like most conservative, most aggressive. So let's just say that the indexes go crazy, and at each adjustment period on the ARM, it would go to the max adjustment. And so I was able to toggle back and forth for this guy just to show him, hey, like you're conservative, but you're also aggressive. So let's just say, hey, if interest rates go in a direction that we don't want them to, how does the strategy on the 7-1 ARM, even though it looks better, how does it look if we actually indicate the rate's going to jump up? And so being able to dive through all this, he selected the jumbo 15-year. We're in the process of doing the refinance. The financial planner was like through the moon, and I got a meeting with him.
Okay, so guys, first of all, you are playing chess. This is a great mortgage under management strategy. So think about all your past customers. If you're not doing annual reviews with Mortgage Coach, you're losing loans. And by the way, this is not only a loan, but this is a meeting with a financial planner. So this is like referral partner plus deal plus client for life. Real quick, I have a couple suggestions, but before I give those to you, could you go back up to the top in the upper left-hand corner?
Up here?
You see that little menu? I want to make sure is that, one, you could switch the views because sometimes you want to walk the client through it differently. Two, the family could click the translation button and they could read this in Spanish. So by the way, we want to give this to whatever language the family wants. And by the way, everybody speaks digital. So just the fact that you're delivering mortgage advice in a way that it can be shared, it's a digital experience. So by the way, one suggestion, Keith, a couple things for you to consider. We're seeing a trend in the Mortgage Coach community where a loan officer wouldn't just say jumbo refi 15-year.
I saw that on the John Downs one. Yeah, put in actual strategy on there.
Yeah, well, you could do like 15-year strategy, 30-year strategy, 7-year strategy. And it's a nuance, but it's language matters. Your competition is going to, jumbo 30-year conforming, they're going to use loan officer talk. At the end of the day, think about the language that you use. So anyway, just something for you to consider. Also, by the way, Jay Crowell, top producer out of Seattle, is where I first heard that. He uses mortgage strategies. So, dude, you crushed it. Everybody watching this, this is a great tip, great strategy to use with your annual reviews. If you're not doing annual reviews, if your past customers aren't your number one priority, you are missing it. You're losing loans. And I would even say your mortgage practice is in jeopardy because, it's more important now than ever. So let's do the next one. You got another story?
Yeah, I do have another one here. So the one that I just showed you was more like wowing the client with strategy. And this one was wowing the client with the technology. So this client is a previous client of mine, one of my success stories. For a period of time, this was my record close client, like the fastest loan I'd ever closed. And they were actually like wore it as a badge of honor. In my annual reviews, he would always ask me like, have you closed a loan faster yet? And so it was kind of cool. He actually got solicited by his current lender that he's making his payments with on a refinance. And then he came to me. So he sent it over, said, I got this quote. What do you think? Something that we want to do. Can you beat it? Can you do better? And so we took a look at it and we put this together. Essentially, the client wants to go from their 30-year to a 20-year and pull a little cash out. So to pay off some debt. So nothing crazy from a strategy standpoint, real simple, really low loan to value. But what I was able to do, this was actually the first client I did mortgage the Edge Live with, right? So I got him on the phone. He was actually on his cell phone on the call with me and had the link up. And then I jumped on Edge Live. And this is the first time I did it. So I was kind of like, I hope this goes well. And all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, are you moving my screen on my phone? And I'm like, yeah. is there information that you'd like to see? So we started pointing this stuff out and changing things. And then I was he's like, well, Keith, what if we want to do $5,000 more cash out? I'm like, hold on, let me fix that. So I actually just go back into Mortgage Coach, changed it while we're on the phone, and then everything got updated, and he was stoked. So this one wasn't so much strategy, more so just kind of wowing the client with a different presentation, because he just got a very generic fee worksheet from the current lender. And then I was able to put this together and show him how we might be able to talk differently about the mortgage.
Well, and I like to call this is a platform win.
Yeah.
Where because you gave the client an omni-channel, by the way, that's tech talk, but that means if you open it up on Android, it's a great Android experience. If you open it on Apple phone, great Apple. If you open it up on desktop. By the way, you were able to send it as a link, text, email. So you got this to the family in a channel that was easy in the way they do life. They got to consume it, and then you were able to educate them in an interactive way. So by the way, what do all the best loan officers do that differentiates this? It's the way they communicate. And so Mortgage Coach, we're talking strategies here, but to everybody on this call, the takeaway should be, it's just a communication. I'm just elevating how well I communicate with every family I touch. And by the way, if it's a family that likes paper and doesn't use technology, which still exists, print it out. There's a print button at the bottom of every report. They can click print and, you can print it for them or they can print it. So, Keith, anything else you want to add on this one?
The only other thing I did here is because it was a pretty simple strategy for the client. One thing on, cash out refinances or refinances in general, I find a lot of newer loan officers don't think about is in a refinance situation, they're typically not coming in with any money, especially on a cash out. The cash out and the loan is covering all the closing costs. And so they don't think about using some points to buy the rate down. And that's one of my value statements is I'm going to help. I think, my role is to answer all the questions that you have to make sure you're comfortable with the process, but also to hopefully make you think about some things that potentially you would not have thought about without speaking with me. And under this scenario, what I showed the client is, he was doing a 4.75 20-year fix with a cash out refi. I said, well, what if we just jump the loan amount up $1,000, so from 213 to 214, and then we just use that difference to buy the rate down. This is not something that you're going to retire off of. You're not going to follow out of your chair over. But if you look at the net worth difference in a 15-year period of time, it wasn't significant, but it was a little bit more. So he ended up going with a 4.75. And because this scenario maybe not had been as great of a difference, but we've been able to use that before where let's just move the loan amount up a little bit, use that difference to buy the rate down, and then over a 5, 10, 15-year period of time, they're actually going to save more money with a slightly higher interest rate by having a slightly higher loan amount by having a lower interest rate.
Yeah, and by the way, that's another strategy because I do a lot of these interviews. I'm seeing more and more Mortgage Coach loan officers put in a 2-point option because let's face it, big banks, online lenders, they're selling lowest rate with most points. And at the end of the day, it's just winning with education and transparency. If you deliver the transparency, you deliver the education, you do it in a way that's a competitive advantage, you get rate shop less and you win more business. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really good point because what we were doing before is because a client will call and you quote them a rate and maybe that's a really good rate, but that rate might be based on your idea, the make sense option, which might be no points, right? And then they go online and they see an interest rate that's 1/4 or 3/8% lower than what you're offering. And you could have offered that rate to them with the same exact cost, or maybe even at a better deal than what they went and saw online. But they're just seeing the rate as that point of sale value, and then they're questioning the rates that you offered, thinking that you're higher, not knowing that that's more expensive. And so what we incorporated a while ago was we would show them 3 different rate options, 2 points, 1 point, no points. And then we had a little Excel spreadsheet we put together that would work out the recapture point. The beauty with Mortgage Coach is that it does it for you and then puts it in a very clean presentation. So even if it's like a real simple, this is a 30-year fixed for a client. It's an FHA home loan. They're putting 3.5% down. It's super simple. There's not a ton of strategy to it. I would still encourage people to show them, even if, paying 2 points to buy the rate down is not something that these clients have the ability to do. You're showing them the lower interest rate, and it's answering the question why they're seeing lower interest rates on the internet, and you're not talking about that lower rate. Does that make sense? I think it really just bypasses the rate conversation right up front.
Well, and I would also make the case that you've delivered a personally branded advice experience.
Yeah.
Your picture, company brand, advice. You've shown up in a way. And by the way, now you have a tool that if they do shop you, by the way, everybody's shopping. The question is, do they grind you? And do they do it at the point of sale, or do they wait until you got the home in escrow? But they're shopping you. So you now have a weapon. You have a tool to have the best possible conversation and show up in a winning light. So a couple things. I'm going to put a link down below to our lead conversion playbook. I want to get a 1-minute script for you before we close this. I am going to ask you guys, if you got value from this, give it a like, whether it's in Facebook or YouTube, and share it with your mortgage friends. If you're a branch manager or a leader, I think it's worth doing a meeting around this and making sure everybody's getting trained up. So here's the script. It will probably evolve, but I think language is powerful. And I would love to know, what do you say, like before you give a family the link to the total cost analysis, how do you describe it so that they click on it and they're tuned in? Like what's your language and talking points? If you could just give us a script on that.
Language and talking points around my value, or why they should check the link. Why they should click this link.
Because you're not just giving them an email, you're not mentioning there's a link, So
right, exactly. So we're framing it up a few different times. The client typically comes into my system, and I have a 5-10 minute conversation with them up front, going over strategy. We have a little mortgage planning questionnaire that we go through, So I have scripts, but what I more so is I have like value statements that I plug into the conversation. So I feel like it's a little bit more authentic. And one of the things that I always say is I don't believe that people in 2018 are getting the wrong loan, but they might not be getting the right loan. And what I want to do is explore a process with you that asks some really important thought-provoking questions so that we can make sure that we get you the lowest interest rate available, but we also put you in the right loan for what you're saying you want to do. Is it okay if we take a few minutes from each to fire off some really important questions so that we can identify what loan program and what interest rate is right for you? And so it's a variance of that. And then I go through the questions, we put in the notes in our system, and then typically the team will run the pre-approval, and then they actually will create the estimate, send an email to the client saying, here's the link. Keith has these 3 times to meet. He would love to get with you over the phone or in person to discuss the information in this link. And then we'll do the Edge live.
Boom. By the way, mic drop. So really good language, really well done. I do recommend, whether you call it total cost analysis,
sure,
you come up with a term in a language that's better than fee estimate, because that's what every loan officer does. Fee estimate, worksheets, loan comparison, things that are not extreme value. Like you made this point that we don't do a good job of packaging our advice. And at least now when you deliver numbers, it's beautiful, it's packaged, but come up with a term, that's, by the way, consumer centric. Like when you say, the reason I named it total cost analysis, because I am a shopper. I'm not always a grinder, but I'm always a shopper. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting a mortgage, total cost analysis. That sounds cool. I want one of those things. So anyways, just think about that and put it in the email, put it in the text. So dude, this has been a fantastic interview. I would love to do another one with you in a couple weeks, couple months, on how you're using seller buy down.
Yeah.
Do some other mortgage strategies. Maybe even, I would love to do one with you with the FHA versus conventional. So it's not so much that the family needed it, it's that you gave them a platform. You gave them a Advice Plays platform. Any last words, to the community before we wrap it up?
I mean, it's an awesome technology. It takes a little bit to get into, but once like my team has come to me and they've told me, my primary person, Aisha, that puts this together, she's told me that she loves putting these together more than the way that we used to put estimates together. So my concern was like team adoption. And at times, in terms of putting the numbers together, they're liking it more than I am. So I resist it for a long time. I would just say, like, give it a chance, fully adopt it and jump into it. It's been changing. It's changed my business for sure. I'm excited about it.
So by the way, folks, I've done a lot of interviews. I'm going to put a link to Josh Metal, Price to Advice, because he almost quit at 7. Like, he had done Mortgage Coach 7 times. And he's like, oh my God, it's taking me 15 minutes. You know, I mean, he's a monster producer. I don't have 15 minutes to do this. Dave, you know, not going to do it. And I said, Josh, you promised me when we started talking that you'd do 20 and give it some time. I don't know whether it was 8, 9, 10, or 12, but somewhere between the 7 that he was ready to give up and the 12th, 1, he got good at it so that he could keep going, and 2, he got client feedback. So, and by the way, if you're with a client that has a Mortgage Coach integration, we integrate with lots of CRMs, lots of LOSs, lots of pricing engines. That's great, but even if you don't, you know, filling it out, it takes a couple minutes, but you got to do it more than 10 times. So, guys, this call is a wrap. Keith, grateful for your leadership, brother.
Thanks, man.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
Take care, bud. Thank you.